Good evening and welcome to the mixed gender ladies show this evening.
We're inclusive over here.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I am slightly disappointed that neither Joe are wearing any kind of noticeable headgear or feminine outfits, but this is where
you don't know what's going on underneath here. You do not.
We do. We've seen it. We've seen it. There is no skirt going on there, Joe.
So women need to have long hair now, do they, Evie? Is that how that works?
Oh my God, Joe. Oh my God. Just for once. Just for once. I'm a woman, I can say it.
I actually do have a skirt on underneath here, for what it's worth. A nice pencil skirt. Looks really nice.
Get the pins out again. It's like being at the charity match all over again. Right, we're going to have to talk about the football. I know nobody wants to because, let's face it, it was pretty diabolical. And I would go as far to say probably our most embarrassing game of the season. And considering we've been beaten 5-0 by Arsenal, that's a pretty like high bar to say that this is the game that I was really disappointed in, but also unfortunately not surprised because we have a terrible record against Brighton. I think in the last 23 games, this is where I'm coming to you, Joe B, because I know that you love a stat. I'm pretty sure in the last 23 games we've won twice. So it's it's not good. It's not good at all. But let's get into it. Was anybody feeling positive about the game before we were going into it? I know that I think I'd said a 1-1 draw, and I was genuinely like, I don't like to be like, oh, I'm really happy with a draw. Sometimes you have to take it because that's just where we are in our kind of evolution right now in the Premier League. But I was genuinely like, if we get a draw here, I am over the moon. Don't care about 3 points. Just genuinely, I'll shake your hand, give me a point now. And I really would have done. Danny, were you feeling confident? Because obviously, I think I know what your predictions are going to be from now on after you did predict. I think you predicted a draw, didn't you, last week?
1-0. And I said if we lost, I would predict draws for the rest of the season. Yeah. I wasn't surprised. I think an optimism in me thought we were going to buck the trend at the Amex for us. It was obviously disappointing, but I don't think it was the most disappointing game for me of the season. I think Arsenal really stung. I didn't expect to win it. It was just the nature in which we lost it. Kind of felt painful. Because I think I said before that game, I just didn't want to be embarrassed. I wanted it to be respectable. This game obviously wasn't great, and it didn't look. It looked like a golfing class, and I do think there's a conversation to be had on whether different tactics could have been used. Do I think it'd have resulted in a different outcome? No, not really. But, that discussion can be had and you can debate it back and forth. But class-wise between the teams, it was evident on the pitch at the weekend.
Yeah, no, I agree. Joe, what were you feeling confident going into it? As in...
Not really, no. I think I'd already been resigned to the fact, like you said, that we never do well. I don't think we've ever won at the Amex, which is terrible stat in itself. I felt the most we could have got was a point. And you know what? Like, the performance was really poor. I sort of tend to agree with what Danny said. I don't understand why we opted to try play out from the back against one of the best sides in the league in terms of winning high turnovers. And I also just think as well, there's a realisation that their squad and players just better than us. And I think that's going to happen more often than it won't, and I think my thing this week has been I can't help but feel I don't know what people expect. Like, we're new boys in this division. The team isn't on the same level as a Brighton, unfortunately, and sometimes we will get whipped. And we got that.
Yeah. That's really sensible from you, Joe. This is
you bring that out of me when I'm just talking on this panel show. That's what I mean. I'm quite chill when I'm on here. I enjoy it, actually. To be fair. Yeah.
Right, Joe B, hit me with some stats. Hit me with some positives to bring me out of my Brighton funk.
We had a wonderful time watching the match in the call. It was great. I have a call of people that I tend to watch the matches with. And Evie hopped in this time, and the speed with which we stopped talking about football once it became very, very clear that we were going to get nothing out of it was fantastic, and it meant that we didn't have to pay attention to it for a while. But in terms of what Joe said a minute ago, with it being a case of like, we're new to this league, what do we sort of expect? Having a look at Brighton's last 4 seasons, they've come 6th, they've come 9th, they've come 11th, they've come 8th. At the end of the day, you have a look at that and you go, well, we're new here. A lot of people at the start of the season were saying, I'll be happy enough with 17th, we stay in the league. We're 16th. We have been beaten by a team that is consistently very, 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 very good in this league. And people have sort of lost their mind. And like, I understand it, we looked really bad, but that's going to happen sometimes, you know? Like, I'm not saying like it's par for the course and we shouldn't expect anything, but at the same time, it is sort of par for the course, and we might expect more of a performance, but out of a result, that happens. It's fine.
We could have gone ahead of them. So yes, they are a better team, but they had one more point than we did at that moment. And we could have gone at them. I don't know, like, Bielsa had his faults when it came to being stubborn, and obviously we've seen that Farke's got his faults. I think if in management in general, all managers are stubborn. That's why they get to the position that they're in, because they have faith and belief, and you know, there's a lot of stats that back up Farke, especially in the Championship. Obviously, less proven in the Premier League, but I would rather lose having a go rather than just bending over, essentially. And that kind of felt like what we did. I understand it with Arsenal. They're 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League. So being whipped 5-0 by Arsenal is not the same as being whipped 3-0 without really giving them a go. I think we had more shots against Brighton than we did against Arsenal, but only 2 more shots. And most of those came within the last few minutes as well, when we decided to maybe have a go to get a consolation goal. Why not just go out and try and play football? Because Brighton can be got at. We've seen that this season. And like you say, Joe B, they have finished consistently upper mid-table for the last few years in the Premier League, which means that in the reality is they can be got at. You don't finish mid-table if you can't be got at, because if you can't be got at, you finish top. You know, you're and we know with how they've rinsed Chelsea for players that they've produced a lot of, you know, they have a brilliant scouting kind of program and blueprint for it. But why can't we at least play football a bit and then sit back, instead of just having a negative output to, you know, and I agree with what Danny, you said about tactical. You know, we've seen this from Farke a few times. And by the way, this is not me condoning people who are like, Farke out, because like you said, Joe B, 17th looks like this. 17th looks like the majority of a crappy season with some sprinklings of good results to just about keep you afloat. But I do think that I struggle when Brighton are not Arsenal. Yes, they are a good team, but they are not Arsenal, because otherwise they would be up there battling with Arsenal. Right now, as far as the teams in the league goes, Sunderland are a better team than Brighton are. They're 4th. Right now, if you were to just look at the table right now, Sunderland are a better team, because they've they're higher, they're 4th. So right now in this specific season, because we were a great team 20 years ago, doesn't mean we're a fantastic team now. So you can only play the teams and the team that you are currently. And currently, Sunderland are performing better than Brighton. They're not a better team overall, but I'm just frustrated that we just didn't give it a go. So yeah, it's call me reactionary. That's fine. I've been fairly reactionary this season, but I would just prefer if we had a little bit more of a go.
Got a little sort of counterpoint to that with saying you'd prefer if we have a go. I would argue that we had a go, we were just bad at it. And we were really bad at it. Because with what Joe mentioned a few minutes ago, saying that why did we try and play out from the back? That is our version of having a go. It's let's try and play our version of football, and if we play our version of football well enough, then we will challenge them and cause them some problems. And we didn't. So I think, for me, it's less a case of we didn't have a go or we didn't try or any of this stuff. We just did it badly, which, admittedly, not great. You should probably adapt at some point. But I think we did give it a shot. We just missed.
Yeah, and let's get on to the goals, because we've got to some sort of dissect this game. Obviously, Welbeck with the opening goal, and he could have scored probably a hat-trick if he'd have been a little bit more clinical, because Joe talked me through the first goal. It was coming, wasn't it? It was only 11 minutes in, but it was already coming by that point.
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing for me with all three really was the ease with which they were scored. I think, the cutbacks from the byline, there seems to be a real lack of concentration, understanding at times. I've seen and heard people liken it to Jesse Marsh. I'm not sure I quite agree, but listen, in terms of cutting back and it's a simple tap-in. Obviously, Danny Welbeck's in hot form as well. Again, I think all three goals are pretty similar in that respect. That they get to the byline.
That's what was so frustrating, is that it was just like copy paste. Yeah. Oh, right, okay. Well, they didn't, and they could have quite easily scored more. They had more shots on target. Yeah. They had the same amount of shots that Arsenal had, and they had more shots on target than And obviously, Georgie did lots of Georgie things. What's everybody's opinion on him not really celebrating? I couldn't. I don't know how I would feel if I was a Brighton fan. I know that they're hard to find in the wild, but Danny, was it too much for him not to celebrate? At the end of the day, it would have been a different situation if it was at Elland Road. I could have understood it more if he'd not celebrated, but he didn't really celebrate at all.
I can understand that. I think it's probably he'd probably have made it anyway, but it's fair to say he wouldn't be where he is now without us.
Absolutely.
And obviously everyone's spoken about it, but he did name that horse after both of us. So clearly we've got a bit of a soft spot in his heart. And I will just add, I've met lots of Brighton fans out in the wild, but that's because I live there.
Yeah, slightly different. You've got a skewed vision.
None of them are very passionate, though. I will say that. It's very different than up here.
Yeah, it's not got the grit of the north.
No.
Joby, what are your thoughts on the repetitive goal? Can you tell me some wild stat that means that they were all three completely different goals and we don't need to be worried?
I can show you a bunch of screenshots that I did that for some reason people were mad at that and were like, yeah, you can take a screenshot of anything and you can tell any story. And I'm like, yeah, but I've taken screenshots of the pass before each of the goals and each of them shows that there's someone in like 5 or 6 yards of space completely around them, able to just slide the ball home quite nicely. I think one of the most telling things about that match is the fact that we lost 3-0. And according to the statistics, Lucas Perry still genuinely didn't do a bad job in goal. He still stopped more goals than he should have conceded, which is insane, and it shows just how sort of vulnerable we were, because every single time, like that first goal, all of our defenders are just drawing themselves towards the front post, and they've got 3 attackers just sat at the back post being like, well, okay, just kick the ball over here then, it'll be great. And then they kick the ball over there, and who knows, it goes in. Just a quick note for Rich, the mic is currently as high as it will go. I'll try and fix that in a minute's time. But it was one of those weird cases of how haven't we learned this lesson? Because it's the same goal consistently, and you can just see it in real time. It's like the match against Bristol City last season. 2 times before Tanaka scored from a corner, you could see Tanaka completely unmarked at the far post.
Yeah.
And from the stands, you can see, oh, that's going to be a problem. And then it was. And we let that same thing be a problem 3 times, and it's just so infuriating sometimes.
Yeah, I think that with Danny Welbeck being on hot form, you can't give him these opportunities. And, you know, like I said, he should have scored more. Like he could have easily been on a hat trick before half time, if we're being completely honest. And we're playing out for the back. It was very dangerous, and we weren't learning from things. It was like we momentarily, the entire game momentarily, forgot that we weren't in the Championship anymore, and that the ball is just people are just going to pressure you until you make a mistake. And, you know, Bogle got the pre-assist for the 3rd goal when he literally handed it back to Georgie. I miss a little bit of fire. Like we miss that when Okafor goes off. We miss that, but we also didn't play to his attacking strengths, in my opinion. And I think that we are really struggling to have that out ball and it's making the attacking players look very blunt. And I don't think that is also helping my opinion of this game, because if we lost 3-0, but you could say you can really pinpoint several moments where we should have done better, there wasn't that many moments that we should have done better in, because there wasn't that many moments to start with. Danny, I can see you're urging to say something.
Yeah, I think my frustration, and it wasn't my only frustration, of course, for other moments, was sort of our midfield were just off it. And I think that feeds into both ends of the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, because if we have quite attacking fullbacks, you know, a right back and left back, and if they are slightly out of position or slightly defensively lacking at times, and they cut in from that side, or we are taken advantage of rather than through the central defence through our sort of wing backs. We need that Ampadu, that Stack, that Tanaka, that Longstaff, whoever's playing, especially Ampadu is obviously, it's what we praise him for the most, to go in there and sort of clean up. And we were definitely lacking at the weekend in the midfield, but that also kind of works for our attacking prowess. And it doesn't mean that we take advantage if we do get an opportunity. I know that can also be an issue, but we kind of know that with this lineup, there are 3, 4, 5 chances for a goal or an assist with this team. If they're not quite playing to standard either, we're also lacking those passes that might be necessary, or that domination in the midfield to create the space for that chance for Okafor or whoever it might be. And I think that they were just off it at the weekend. And that wasn't the only issue, but that was kind of the difference maker, I felt, at the weekend.
It's a cliche for a reason, isn't it? You know, games are won and lost in the midfield. And if our midfield isn't on it, isn't defensive enough, isn't creative enough, isn't just what it should be, that's it. We're done, because it's the Premier League and you can't just have your right back or your left back bombing forward with no kind of consequences. You know, we did see both flanks getting exposed by Brighton. A lot of the pundits were saying that it was Brighton's best game of the season, and obviously in a true kind of Leeds fashion, I'm like, oh, of course it's Leeds, everybody turns up because it's against us. Is it just a game, Joe, that maybe we have to just say it's Brighton? We could have a world-beating team and Brighton would still somehow get the worst out of us.
Yeah, I remember, Bielsa would go there and get beat by Graham Potter and we were stinking and, all this sort of stuff. I've sort of, over the last few days, just a lot of mulling over Leeds United and thinking about where we're at and coming to sort of terms with the fact that actually the squad's just not that good. And is always going to be a struggle to stay in this division. I think if we're out of the bottom three by January, I think Farke has done an exceptional job. I know not a lot of people will agree with me because they think he's the one holding us back, but holding us back from what? Like 10th? Like, did you actually think that would be a thing? Like, with the squad of players that we've got, I think this is it. And I also think there's a case of the performances that we saw against Everton at home, against Newcastle at home. This is the start of a season. The players are, we remember that first game against Liverpool, for example, under Bielsa. It's like, we're now in the Premier League. I'm not saying that the players aren't giving it in as much as they were in that first game. But my point is, like, I guess over time, the shine comes off of, oh my God, I'm now in the Premier League and I am I'm a Premier League player and I'm going to give everything. If you compare that midfield's performances in them early games to what we're seeing more recently, is there a more leveling out of, right, okay, this is the norm now, if that makes sense? Because if you look at Ampadu's performances, for example, in the early parts of the season, he was phenomenal. Now, is there even a conversation that someone else could play in the six? I don't know, but I just think there's a number of things, and we're in game week 10 into 11, and they say 10 game weeks you get a sort of understanding of where you're at. I think this is where we're going to be at, and it's going to be up and down like this until game week 38, and hopefully we've done enough.
Yeah. So is it stop the count now then? Shall we just say
please,
we're done?
Now, yeah.
I would be okay if the season ended right now, if I'm being honest, and just say, like, look, we're here, we've cemented our place. It's not pretty. And I think we've maybe, because we had 2 years of basically winning 95% of the time, it is going to take a lot to get used to. And because obviously we have such traumatic recent history of the relegation and then the almost relegation the season before, it's a long time since we've had a confident team. And obviously before this game, Bielsa was on the same points that we are now after the same amount of games played, and we finished 9th. And I'm not saying that we're going to finish 9th at all, but that's the reality of it. The reality is that points, and like you said, Joe, the points in the Premier League are always hard to come by. And I think that, and I'm telling this not to have a go at anybody, because I'm also telling it to myself, that we need to be patient and we need to calm down a little bit. We're not in the Championship anymore, so therefore we've gone from being like a huge fish in a small pond to like a low, small fish in a really big ocean. And we don't have or we're not allowed to use our resources to try and get us up further. You look at, out of the 3 teams that came up, you look at the team that was able to spend the most out of the 3 teams, and then you look at where they are in the table. And yes, that could all change in January when you've got AFCON and things, but they're putting the points on the board now. And everybody,
I think they're safe, don't you?
I think there's too many other teams. They could afford to go on a bad run and still be mid-table. I know obviously they're 4th, but realistically, and look, I'd be happy for them. I'd feel incredibly jealous, but I'd be happy if they ended up in the top half of the table. What an amazing thing for Championship teams to aspire to be, that the Premier League isn't unattainable, because for the last couple of seasons it has looked that way, and that's coming from teams that have spent recent history in the Premier League, you know, Sheffield United, Burnley, Leicester, Southampton. They've all been absolutely annihilated, and now most of them are actually, well, not obviously not Burnley because they're up with us, but you know, Sheffield United, Leicester, Southampton, they're all struggling in the Championship. So it's nice to see a team come into the Premier League and actually be able to play with the big boys. But it just goes to show that had we have got up that first season, we would have been able to spend more than we have been able to this year, and we're feeling that pinch. You know, we can't change anything, but that is the sad reality, is we are feeling the pinch of not being able to spend. You know, we've got one of the biggest global, you know, brands behind us in the 49ers. We should be able to just go drop in money left, right, and centre, and we're not. And that is the harsh truth of the Premier League, is right now, for the money we've been able to spend, there's an argument to say that we could have spent it differently, but we've done what we've done, and this is where we are because of that financial choices. And I just hope that we pick up away form, because it was a topic of discussion in the Championship. So maybe Farke you know, it's not just a case of us building this kind of cauldron and this safe haven almost at Elland Road. Maybe Farke needs it just as much as the players do. Maybe Farke needs it just as much as the fans do. That fortress of Elland Road. Maybe he struggles as well, because it isn't the first time that we've questioned his away tactics. You know, we questioned it last season and the season before that, but we're against a much fiercer opposition in the Premier League. We won't start talking about Forest just yet, because there is still a final goal to, no. All of the goals, unless anybody has any other opinion, are very similar goals. Incredibly frustrating. And the second half, I feel that even though we were only 1-0 down, we came out like we'd already lost the game. And Brighton came out as if they wanted to put an exclamation mark at the end of the win, which is exactly what they did. Danny, were you disappointed with how deer in headlights we seemed to look in the second half?
Yeah, I was, but I do think that coming up against a Brighton, they've had many years and brilliant recruitment. I understand that there wasn't much of a difference at the start of the game between us on the table, but I don't think anyone would expect us to be that close come the end of the season. I did think it was going to be tough. And I think for our players, because we don't quite, I mean, in the Championship, it was different. We had the best squad, probably, and we could just dominate teams off talent most of the time, other than the occasional sort of off day. But this year, we are one of the worst squads and the worst teams in the league. No matter where we finish, we just are. That's the nature of anyone that comes up. But especially considering we didn't have sort of the full promotion money to spend due to what we'd already paying off previous players and everything that the previous regime had done. But I think that to come up against a Brighton at this stage, I think it's coming into what was previously spoken about just before. At home, they can almost get an emotional buzz off us that can, you know, like that adrenaline you get sometimes that can pick them up and just give them that 12th man, that extra internal sort of drive. But I suppose, especially in a stadium like the Amex, which I have been inside and is, I don't know, quite sterile. No offence to Brighton fans. It's just not there. And I think maybe that gulf in quality when we're away and at Brighton, like you said, coming out and it being like that, we just don't have that ability to sort of get them up for it. And I think we were just exposed in that game. I'm not overly worried about it. But I do think that there's going to be a few games like that to probably mid-table, 10th place teams this season, unfortunately. So no, I wasn't surprised. But I think there's rational reasons for it.
Damn you, Danny, being rational. God, can't you just be emotional like me today? Joby, obviously, Gomez got 2 goals in 6 minutes, and that was it. The game was signed, sealed, and delivered, as Joe likes to say. But are there any positives that came out from that game? Because I am desperate to find something to get me out of this mood, because I've been in it since 3 on Saturday. Does Mecha, in fact, I'll phrase it. All right, go on.
I'll give you 3 positives. 1, we got out of it without any players injured, so we still have a fully fit squad. Admittedly, it's not the best squad, but everyone's there. So that gives us a sort of wider range of options if it comes to, we got some choices to make, 2, we don't have to go to the Amex again and visit what is effectively a conference centre rather than a football stadium, with how there was just no sound. It was like, what if a library, but you take out all of the books and no one gets to have any fun or learn anything? That sounds like I'm calling libraries fun. They are a bit. Never mind. And the third one is we've potentially learned lessons about limitations of players, and it's always good to learn as many lessons as you can in one really embarrassing loss than over 6 or 7 kind of unpleasant, but you've learned one thing in each one losses. If you can learn everything all at once, you only have to lose that one game. The rest of it, all good, brilliant. So there we go.
All right. That's fairly upbeat. Well done. I'm proud that you have been able to slightly uplift me.
I'm surprised I've managed that one. Yep.
Well done. Joe, is there a shout for starting Mecha over DCL? Because other than his hold-up play, he hasn't got us on the score sheet or assisted since Wolves.
Yeah, no, I agree in that respect, that he isn't maybe scoring or assisting, which is what you want from anyone in the team, really. But I just, in my honest opinion, I don't think Mecha's good. He was a free to play a part in the squad. I don't think Pirro's a Premier League player. And our best chance, or best route to goal, is Calvert-Lewin on the pitch. Mecha's never really scored goals throughout his career. I guess you could argue Calvert-Lewin hasn't either. I just really worry about our squad, and it's taken 10 games for me to go, okay, like, we're doing all right, but is it enough? I personally wouldn't start Mecha is my answer to that question, because I don't think he's good enough and don't think he would score the goals anyway. So it's better the devil you know, I guess, is that what I'm saying. I'd rather us go with that rubbish rather than that rubbish, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being harsh, but
that's absolutely fine. The problem that we have is that we've got a goal scorer who the rest of his play isn't good enough really to be in the Premier League. And then we have 2 players who are fairly similar profiles. DCL is obviously a lot better at holding up the ball, and he makes a better target man because he is better at controlling the ball when you go long to him. But essentially, we have one striker who can score but can't do anything else, and 2 other strikers that can do other bits but also can't score. So, and then we got rid of wingers, didn't really replace them, replaced some with other injury-prone wingers, and our wingers that, we couldn't find better. There wasn't, players good enough to replace them, have been injured. So we are incredible, goals not only are hard to come by, I don't know who scores them when the opportunity gets to them anyway, because we fluff a lot of them. And I actually thought Mecha had one of the best opportunities, or one of the only opportunities of the game, and forced a good save from the Brighton goalkeeper. But I do agree with what you've said, really, about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But it's a conversation that I thought that maybe Danny, is there a call for a change in formation if none of our striking options can do it on their own? 4-4 effing 2, just saying.
A big man, little man option. I don't know if I would. I'll be honest. I don't know if I would. Maybe I'll change tune in a month or in a few more games. I know we've got like a break coming up, but I don't think I would. I think when we have Willie back, we've got another threat. I think the most important thing is we need Okafor fit. He is the sparkle. He's not quite, I'm not saying he's of the level, but he's the Rafinha of the squad this season. Yeah. Just, not a 9th place Rafinha, or a, lower level. But I think that I think Daniel Farke just kind of needs to, because I'm just not sure it would work. He kind of needs to make do until January. And if he can keep us on the track we're on, which admittedly we've got really tough fixtures up to Christmas really now.
Yeah.
If he can pick up 6, 7, 9 points in between now and sort of New Year, I know one of them's just after Christmas, then it's time to go out and just bring a couple of reinforcements in here. Because I will say with Daniel Farke, I do think he's limited. I think he has a ceiling. But considering we didn't do what we needed to do and we're in the position we're in and had some of the results we've had, I think I have my criticisms of him, as you know, but I think he's doing a good job. And I think we just need to trust that, yes, we work good at the weekend, but he's quite reactionary, which can be a criticism. But it does mean that hopefully he comes out at the weekend and those issues are sorted. Sorry, there's fireworks going nuts just there, if you can hear it.
Oh, we're getting shot at then, man. What's going on?
Yeah, that's just out of the neighbour's garden, I can see.
keep in their good books then. I agree with you in the fact that he's got his limitations. I'm a Farke fan, but I do admit that he has his limitations when it comes to being able to change a game, to when it comes to not sticking by his favourites, etc., etc. But you do have to compliment the man when it comes to, we didn't improve in the forward positions. We got 2 free strikers, and regardless of contract situations, there is still a reason why they were free. You can't say that if Dominic Calvert-Lewin did more than hold things up and create opportunities for others, if he did actually finish, we wouldn't have got him. But Sunderland probably would have done, because they seem to get all of the targets that we wanted during the summer. Do we all think that Farke lasts until January? Obviously, when you consider the fixtures that we've got, the points that we're probably going to struggle to get, do we think that the board has faith in him if he gets 6 points between now and the New Year period? Joe B?
Sorry, I'm just counting the fixtures. Yeah, I think so. I think that's perfectly doable, because if you have a look at the fixtures, yeah, we've got the City, Chelsea, Liverpool chunk, which everyone was looking at and going, well, that's a problem, because it is. But around that, you've got Forest, who have gone genuinely insane. and have decided to sign Sean Dyche, who, and I'm going to bring it back to the 4-4-2 conversation, by the way, Evie, because you might have noticed me frantically Googling to the side. Not one Premier League team this season has played a 4-4-2 in any fixture, and I think there's a reason for that, because it's shit. So let's.
I was only
no
jesting.
4-4-2. What we know you Brexit football monster. But in that period, we've also got Villa coming up. There's no guarantee that we get absolutely nothing out of the City, Chelsea, Liverpool batch. Brentford,
Especially
can
Liverpool.
get something. Especially Liverpool, they're a mess at the minute. Can beat Brentford, can beat Palace. Sunderland will have none of their players, and then we're into the weird New Year's-y thing, where, yeah, I think we get enough points to look reasonable through that period, to be honest.
So
I agree.
I don't really want to talk about the game anymore. If anybody else has anybody else got an opinion or a thought or a rant or even a positive to say about the game, or shall we move on to Forest?
I would just like to say, I think I've been saying it. I don't think the manager's the problem. I just think it's personnel. I don't think we're of the level, and I think he's doing great with what he's got. And until that opinion's changed, I will continue to be front and centre FDL Farke Defence League. I think he deserves our backing. And long may his reign continue.
Well, yeah. At the end of the day, if he's in a job, that means we're doing well, or at least where we should be. So I don't understand. With the lack of investment that we had during the summer, I'm not quite sure, literally, other than Bielsa, and people get fed up of us all banging on about Bielsa, I don't honestly know another manager that could get out of the players what is needed to get out of them in order to make them a more competitive team. And I also don't think that the players that we've got are Bielsa-style players anyway. Well, we know Jack Harrison is, because, he was golden boy at one point. But I do agree the investment wasn't there, and whether that is all on the 49ers or whether there's a deeper conversation that I'm sure we can have at some point in terms of why football is completely broken and only geared towards the big six. But I think that we're on track to, in theory, staying up by the points that we've got on the board. We've still got all those teams to play again. We can rectify the Burnley situation at Elland Road. We can rectify the Fulham situation at Elland Road. Liverpool can be got at. Chelsea can be got at. I mean, Christ, Lincoln City were beating them at one point in the Carabao Cup, and they had to bring on £500 million worth of players in order to beat a club that is valued at £7.5 million. So all of these teams can be got at. And yes, we've dropped points in games that we shouldn't have dropped points in, i.e. Burnley, Fulham, because they're in and around us. So right now, Fulham are in a dangerous position. There's a lot going on behind the scenes at Fulham to cause unrest. Wolves are just a basket case. Obviously, West Ham got a win against Newcastle, a really convincing win, actually, against Newcastle at the weekend as well. But they're still 5 points behind us. So why can't we get a shock result? If Sunderland can do it now, when all of their players have gone to AFCON in January, why can't we get some shock results? Why can't we do a Stuart Dallas from 2021 and beat Man City? Yeah. So maybe those are the games that we then surprise everybody, because we didn't do it against the teams that we should have done. But let's believe. I am still on the FDL. I mean, I'm not, captain of it like you are, Joe. But
we will get some positive. Like, everyone's looking at that run and thinking we're just going to lose it all. We won't.
No, because as well, like it's Chelsea and Liverpool at home. It's not Chelsea and Liverpool away. So it doesn't. It doesn't mean that we're just going to lose, because I don't think Farke rolls over at Elland Road, because I don't think the Elland Road crowd allows us to roll over. I don't think we show people as much respect at Elland Road as we do when we're away from home. So let's move on to Forest and Dyche's Forest. I mean, we're going to have to start getting kind of like post-it notes to figure out who's the current manager of Forest this season. But Danny, what are your feelings towards Forest? Would you have preferred it to have been Big Angie's Forest, or do you think that actually Dyche is not the saviour that he was maybe for Everton and Burnley?
I would have taken. I'd have taken Big Angie's Forest, because I think there's a bedding in period that sometimes with Dyche, Brexit, football, there isn't, because there's a lot less to it. However, I still think we can get something from it. That's not me saying like, oh, Dyche is brilliant and we're going to roll over and they're going to take 3 points. That's not my point. But I think I'd have taken Big Ange, which I think Big Ange is a better manager. So it's a strange thing to say, but it's that bedding in period. A bit like Bielsa. That first pre-season was... It could have gone either way from just the pre-season snapshot.
Yeah. I think that Dyche has a lot of work to do. There's a lot of kind of change, but I do think that Dyche is a better transition than going from Nuno to Big Ange. I do think it's a lot more basic, but he won't have them necessarily as good at the counter-attack as Nuno did. But I do think that if you're going to go from one manager to another, that is a better transition. So I agree. I would have rather played them under Big Ange, because he does like playing free-flowing football, which I think would work in our favour, because I think we go for that. And I think we get more out of that game. I am going to say it now. I am all right with a draw away from home, because I think last time we played Dyche away from home was the Everton 1-0. The goal that should never have come in, when it was that weird angle coming out the side and Meslier just didn't save it, and it just should never have been a goal. So that's what I can think. And also the last time we played Forest away from home was, again, it was the game that Jesse Marsch got sacked after that game. So Forest away plus Sean Dyche, I'm not feeling great about this. So Joe B, again, you've been my emotional support person today, so please give me some reason to say that we are going to do well in this game.
Because Forest's players are going to have no idea what they're trying to do. They're currently at a club where the owner is a millisecond away from setting his own hair on fire, completely by accident, just surprising everybody. They've gone from defensive manager to really attacking manager, so they've got to completely forget all the defensive stuff that they had in their mind and then go, okay, I guess we're doing attacking now. Back to defensive stuff, so now they're like, right, okay, so do we do this when this guy's got the ball? What's the pattern when that happens? And it's chaos. And it means that in the matches that Sean Dyche has run them in so far this season, they've created from open play 0.9 XG or something like that. People were like, yeah, they beat Porto and it was fantastic. They scored 2 penalties. Just don't kick them in the box, and then they've got absolutely nothing. They are a very, very, very beatable side. We've seen how weak they can be throughout the first chunk of the season. And yeah, away from home, you probably do take a point. Admittedly, a lot of Leeds fans online will go, the below us in the table, why don't we beat them? These are the games that we should be winning. But that just can't happen every single time. So point will do. 3 would be great, and I just hope that we go into an international break not having a collective mental breakdown for the first time in a while.
That's a good shout. Is there a reason though to slightly just antagonize? Joe, Forest play tomorrow, and obviously we will have had
tonight.
Is it tonight?
Yeah, they're playing now, I think.
No, I think it's tomorrow, 5:45.
It's Champions League tonight. The other one's tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? No,
I'm sure it's Thursday that they play.
Sorry, it's Thursday. Yeah, sorry. No,
Yeah.
it's me who's got confused. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. So obviously that's
My bad.
they have 2 days like in
Yeah.
between. So and we'll have had 8 days to study Dyche, to study Forest players, to get everybody's fitness back, to try and get Willie at least on the bench, because I've got to admit when I saw no Willie, it made me feel sad because of the fact that we didn't have the option to change it. We didn't have, even less attacking options. Joe B, get your mind out the gutter.
Get your mind up.
So there's no excuses, the Joe, in terms of we've had 8 days, we've had and they've had 2 days in between. Like the turnover is they're away from home as well, in the Champions League, so there's travel involved. Every single thing, and this is Leeds United, but every single thing says that this is the best time that we should be playing. That's really, I understand what Joe B is saying, and that's a very logical, pragmatic way to look at things, but that isn't really the excuse to not at least get a point away from home.
Yeah, I guess when you put it like that, big up Tyrell in the chat. I when you put it like that, I have to go, yeah, but I still think, any point on the road.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying there's no excuse to not get a point.
Yeah, a
point is where we should be at. Anything more than that away from home is an absolute bonus, because like you said, points are hard to come by, but there isn't really an excuse this week at all. Like we've had 8 days and they've got 2 days in between.
Yeah, no, you bang on, Evie, and I hadn't really given that much thought, to be honest, until you mentioned it. So yeah, I think we've got to get something. We've got to get something, because the noise will just get even louder. I want to get something just for my own mental health, because it's shit when you're losing games of football. So I'm hopeful that we can, and then I think we've got an international break then, haven't we? So it'd be nice to get 3 points and have a nice international break, and then be locked in for the rest of November, December, January, and the January transfer window and everything that comes with that. It's an exciting time. So let's hope we sign off, this last international break until March with a positive result. And look, if we do get beat, we get beat, but I don't want to see a repeat of Brighton. I want to see us be competitive. Notoriously, the City Ground's a tough place for us to go. It has been, and it has been over time. I remember that Bielsa season where we lost there, and you had Luke Ayling and that, looking like they were on the floor. It was game over, etc. So, it's a tough place to go, but as long as we perform to how we know we can, then I don't see why we can't get a positive football.
Does anybody have any team changes that they would bring in? Danny, do you have anybody that you would like to see given a go? If everybody, so this is saying everybody that has recently been injured and has come back, i.e. Willie, Dan James, Okafor, is there anybody that you would change, or would you keep it the same as last week?
If everyone's fit.
Yeah.
I'd bring Aaron. Everyone was mediocre at the weekend, but Harrison's been good. But I'd bring Willie in if he's fit, even if he can only get 20 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever. I would also. Yeah, I think probably that's the only one for sure.
Yeah. Joe B?
Can we please say Nonto from now on? Please. Please. It's just breaking me.
Come on, this is the most laughing I've done all week. Let me be immature for once.
I'm not entirely sure that Willie can last a whole 25 minutes, so I'm going to go with James on the right, Okafor on the left. Stack the midfield out. Lovely. Bosh.
Now, by stack the midfield out, do you mean stack in the midfield? Or was that just an accidental pun?
If Stack's big enough, he can support Willie quite well. And we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Joe, any changes for you? We know that you are an Aronson lover. So do you drop Aronson, considering he's had more goal involvement than our starting striker in recent games? Or do you keep it the same?
It's hard. Would argue James has arguably been worse.
I agree.
So if Willie's fit enough, then you play him, but I don't think he will. So I think it'll be the same again. I get everyone wanting Brendan to be dropped and stuff, but he's actually been one of our better players. But he's not going to throw Nonto straight in. I don't think James has been anywhere near to the level of even Brendan this season, let alone his own form. So I think it'll be the same again. We go with what we got. I'm pretty devoid of confidence at the minute in the options that we have. I think we have to wing and pray till January, and hopefully the 49ers get the checkbook out. So that's where my head's at. Yeah,
I've seen a few comments about DCL being injured. Do you know anything about that, Joe?
He went off. I think he went off apparently with a knock. I don't know. So I guess we'll find out on Friday. Yeah.
God, I get so stressed out now waiting for the pressers because I'm excited, but also there isn't that much to be excited about in terms of we don't have loads of like say attacking options. So even when the attackers are back, they're not fantastic options. So yeah, I think we need something, because I think after making us watch that pitiful performance on Saturday, I think the players owe us a decent away game as well. People travel all over the country. Those traveling fans deserve a good game as well. Even if we don't get all of the points, even if we don't get any points, at least give them something to sing and shout about. Because Forest has the potential to turn toxic as well. So we could really try and utilize that, because we're not at that level yet, but we've been there before. Many times we've been there. So that cliche, but that first goal is absolutely vital. And I genuinely think whoever scores that, similar to the West Ham game, whoever scores it, that's the winning team on that day, even if the other team do score. So yeah, I personally wouldn't. Nonto would be the only one for me that I would put on, but I don't think Aronson has necessarily done too much to say that he shouldn't start. And then you maybe bring Nonto on, and unfortunately, I love Dan James, but he just has not been the same since his injury last season. And I think that he hasn't been allowed to heal properly, and now we're seeing the repercussions of that now. He got rushed back for the Oxford game, and then he got rushed back this season twice. So yeah, he hasn't really done anything, and I really want him to do it. So, but bring him on afterwards, you know. But I do agree that I don't think that Farke will start anybody other than Aronson at this moment in time. So, does anybody else have any? Should we do score predictions? I'm kind of dreading doing score predictions because I feel like, other than Joe B, like really kind of galvanizing the positivity today. I don't think there's going to be many positive score predictions, but I'll start with you, Joe.
Why not? Let's go for it with the 2 days rest that they've got, and we've had 8 days, as you rightly put it. Let's go for a 2-1 Leeds United win. Let's do it.
Danny, what's your draw score going to be?
1-1. This is
1-1.
a 1-1er. Yeah, I feel it.
Okay, Joe B.
I thought I was going to be the only positive one, so now I need to sort of outdo Joe. I'm going to go 3-0. There we go.
Jesus Christ. Wow. There's positive, and then there's just, what have you been taking?
Look, chuck me in the asylum. Fine.
Right. Well, I was going to go 1-1. So I will go 2-2 because I genuinely am happy with a draw as long as it's a good performance and we've got the bit between our teeth, in all honesty. So, yeah, I think we're done for this evening. I think we've had a bit of therapy. We've had a bit of, laughter. Oh, Joe, yeah.
Before we do go, we have some super chats. If you saw, flash them up on the screen. Yeah. There you go.
I was raging watching that, seeing the centre-backs allowed to maraud into our half unchallenged. That's not the attacking cam on the ball. It's a centre-back gets struck in. Absolutely. We gave them too much respect, and I think that has been a vulnerability of Farke, is showing opposition too much respect, especially away from home. So, yeah, Big Stack Meal, agree with that. Again, Big Stack Meal. Big issue is sides like West Ham, not Forest, are just sides massively underperforming because their squads are far better than they both where they both are.
Yeah.
But West Ham's squad has been demolished over the last few seasons, and they haven't really replaced it with quality. They've overpaid for a lot of mediocre footballers, and we've seen that. We've done that in recent history ourselves, and when we did that, we got relegated. So no team's too big to get relegated, and I think that they've mismanaged a lot of their squad. And like we sang, and they sang as well, they sold their soul for that place. So yeah, and not Forest, yes, they've been up 3 years, but they're not a ridiculously established Premier League team. I agree West Ham should be doing better, but not Forest sold players, and also they had a manager in Nuno, like we did with Bielsa, that got the best out of the players that they had available. Now they've gone through the churn of multiple managers, 3 managers in less than 3 months. That's never going to do anybody's confidence or stability any good. So I don't think necessarily that they are underperforming. I just think maybe they're slightly underperforming.
And last one.
Kershaw, another $4.99 donation. Thank you. We would all have taken 16th after 10 games with a squad lacking quality. Are people only now complaining because of what Sunderland are doing? Agree. And I was one of those people complaining, and I will keep on complaining. But I do, the rational and slightly less emotional side of me does agree that this is what 16th, 17th looks like. It's fairly uncomfortable for the majority of the season.
Do you think there's something? Do you think there's something in that though, that Sunderland are doing so well that we? Oh
yeah, if Sunderland were in and around us, nobody would be even looking at their transfer window in the summer. But I think there is something about the fact that they were able to spend when we simply couldn't. We have a lot more financial constraints, and the same with Burnley. They also have a massive amount of financial constraints around them, and they had a lot of players that they had a loan with an obligation to buy as well. So it again meant they were limited, not only financially, but because they'd already spent that money before they even got promoted. So yeah, it's football. Every team worries about what every other team's doing. I think the only team that can't really worry, well, there's two teams that can't really worry about anybody else, and that would be Arsenal and also Wolves, because Wolves are almost relegated and Arsenal are comfortably top of the table. Everybody else in between worries about what every other team is doing. So for once, we are completely normal for worrying.
I just want to add as well, I'm back in 20 minutes with Wolfie to discuss, get his thoughts. The only time I could get Wolfie this week, because like Evie so rightly mentioned, they've got a game tomorrow. Then he'll be doing all his post-match stuff Friday, so we'll have to grab him tonight. So I will be back at 8:30 to speak to Wolfie about Forest. Evie, amazing again, once again. Yeah.
I struggle to get my head through like the door soon.
Quality, but I'll let you finish us off, Eva. Oh, sorry.
Right, well, let's hope for at least a point away from home. Let's change this away record. Everybody, please remember to subscribe, smash the like button, and remember to put that notification bell on as well. And we will see you all later. Adios.